To be or not to be. So begins what is quite arguably the most famous monologue in the entire history of theater. It's the speech where Hamlet, the depressed and ever indecisive Dane, contemplates whether or not to kill himself. Except, the to be or not to be speech isn't actually about that. And young Hamlet isn't the indecisive and suicidal prince most people make him out to be. While it's true that Hamlet's soliloquy is one of the greatest monologues of all time, most of us were taught the complete opposite of what it actually means. It's quite likely that everything you were taught about Hamlet is wrong. Once you discover the real brilliance of Hamlet's musings, you'll quickly see why the to be or not to be speech is truly inspiring. Before diving into the monologue itself, we first need to discuss one of the biggest forces that keeps us from accomplishing our goals and desires: fear. Fear of the unknown makes us risk-averse and stops us from moving forward personally and professionally. Doing something new can be scary, especially when there's no guarantee that taking a chance or a leap of faith will result in a better life. This fear manifests itself in everything from careers to relationships. For example, many of us might want to pursue another career path or feel the need to end a relationship, but we stay stuck where we are because of fear of the unknown. But when fear drives us to avoid necessary change in our lives, that's when we pay the consequences. When we let fear take over, we succumb to mediocrity. We betray ourselves and our real desires by ignoring our gut instincts and sticking with the status quo. Being able to overcome this paralyzing fear of the unknown is the key to a better life. This is why we now look to Hamlet's to be or not to be. If you're like most people, you were probably taught that Hamlet's speech is basically an open suicide note. The words to be or not to be are interpreted as to live or die. However, there's much more to the monologue than this superficial reading. The speech isn't about Hamlet deciding to literally be or not be. Rather, it's about him deciding whether or not to face up to his fear and take action. The passage comes right as Hamlet begins to contemplate his next steps. If it's proven that his uncle murdered his father, Hamlet will soon face a decision: whether to do nothing about it and live peacefully, or to try to avenge his father and risk losing everything, even his own life. As Hamlet tries to determine his next move, he asks that famous first question: to be or not to be? He then follows it with, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. Here, Hamlet ponders whether it's better to just sit by and suffer whatever it is life throws at you, or if it's better to take up the fight against those forces and do something about them. He then continues with the next few lines: to die, to sleep, no more. And by sleep we say to end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. Now this is what people usually point to say Hamlet is suicidal. But isn't ending the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to something we all wish for? Just because we don't want to suffer doesn't mean we're suicidal. The key insight for us, though, comes in the next few lines. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. Here, Hamlet proclaims that not knowing what dreams may come after death is what keeps people from killing themselves. It's what makes calamity of so long life. However, the meaning behind the speech is deeper than that. Hamlet isn't simply talking about the fear of what might await us in the afterlife. Instead, he's expressing the fear of the unknown by putting it in terms of life or death. In this sense, to be means to take action and actually live your life, not just trudge through it. Not to be means to sit back and passively suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It means to never take action because of fear of the unknown. This all comes to a head in the last section, which I've adapted slightly. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, but that the dread of something after death puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all. Is this not a modern dilemma? How many of us put up with an awful boss or the heartbreak of a bad relationship just because we're afraid to leave and face the unknown? Avoiding risk because we don't know what might come next is what keeps so many of us toiling away in the drudgery, or as Hamlet says, the calamity of life. So while Hamlet does mention death in the speech, he's not trying to decide whether or not he should commit suicide. Instead, he's considering whether or not he should take a risk and take action against his murderous uncle. For Hamlet, taking action means facing his fear of the unknown head on. What happens if he doesn't succeed? What happens if he does succeed, but gets caught afterwards? It's hard to kill a king and get away with it. Ultimately, Hamlet decides that it's better to take arms against a sea of trouble than to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Even if he fails, he'll at least die with more dignity than he would have by not being, and just sitting back to take life's beating. The question Hamlet poses in his to be or not to be speech is a question that's relevant to us all. It's something to ponder whenever we consider doing something like changing careers, moving to a new city, starting a business, entering a new relationship, or making some other decision that will dramatically impact our life. The fear of the unknown can be overwhelming. Anytime we embark on a new path, another path ends. It's normal to fear the potential death of opportunity, happiness, or change in the status quo. I believe that in any given circumstance, there might be 100 good reasons to not do something. Fear, however, should never be one of those reasons. Next time we face a big decision, we can look to Hamlet for inspiration and ask ourselves, to be or not to be? In my humble opinion, the only worthwhile answer is to be. By choosing to be, we choose to take action. We choose to be brave, to be resilient, and to be the author of our own life. By choosing to be, we choose to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To do so is to be truly alive.